Hi, this is Nicky and welcome back to Touchdown T, broadcasting live from London, UK. For those of you who've not seen a video of mine before, I'm an NFL fan, a Baltimore Ravens fan from the UK, and I'm using my channel to talk about the Baltimore Ravens first and the NFL in general second. Today, I'm talking about the big news of the day for Ravens fans. Baltimore have signed Dez Bryant to the practice squad. So for those who need a recap, Dez was on the Dallas Cowboys for 8 seasons. He's a Texas native. He was big news over there. He was their number one receiver for much of that time, and he was a superstar. He's been out of the league for a couple of years now, but let's hope he's got some tread on the tires and he's ready to come in and do a job for the Ravens. So this is not the first time the Ravens have been interested in Dez. In 2018, the team made him an offer. He didn't come to the team. I know some Ravens fans were salty about that at the time and got at Dez on social media. At the time, he said that he didn't sign the Ravens because his head was not right. He seemed to indicate maybe there were mental health issues at play, and he didn't want to give his a poor performance and make himself look bad or let down the team, so he didn't sign. That's Dez's story. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm sympathetic with those kind of issues. However, there were also reports from multiple sources saying that Dez didn't want to sign in Baltimore at that time because he wanted a one-year deal, a one-year prove-it deal, probably because he wanted to boost his value after that one season and get a multi-year lucrative offer somewhere else or even on the Ravens. But the Ravens at the time were offering him a multi-year deal. So anyway, regardless of all that in the past, he's on the team now. Now, the reasons I think this is a valuable signing are, of course, we don't know how good Dez is at the moment, what shape he's in. But the team has looked at him on multiple occasions. They looked at him in 2018. Obviously, that's a long time ago now. But the team had him in August of this year again, and he left without a deal. But the coaches and staff at the Ravens must have seen something that they liked because they brought him in again, tried him out again, and signed him to a practice squad. And we would expect him to end up on the full 53-man roster sooner rather than later. So, if it's good enough for the coaches, if Greg Roman, John Harbaugh are seeing something they like from Dez, then I'm minded to think that there's something he can offer the team as well. And we have to be honest. We can't snub our nose at a former first team All-Pro like Dez is, because right now the receiving core is not up to par. It really isn't. And it's sad for me to say that because my preseason predictions on what the receiving core would do were somewhat optimistic if you look at the results to this date. I, in a previous video, said that I was predicting a 1,000-yard season for Hollywood Brown. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. There's still a lot of season to come. But we're somewhere off that pace at the moment. And I think the bigger thing was that I predicted a breakout season for Miles Boykin. Now, I've been a Miles Boykin supporter. In his rookie season, I really wanted him to get some more snaps, get some more targets. But I accepted it as a building rookie season for him. And I thought 2020 he's really going to break out. I looked at his credentials, what people had said about what he'd done at Notre Dame or Notre Dame. And I thought that he's a big-bodied receiver. He could be a really good possession receiver for the Ravens, something that we really need while Marquise Brown stretches the field. It hasn't worked so far. I'm not going to write him off completely, but I have to be honest, I'm starting to think that Miles is never going to become the player that I'd hoped. I wasn't the only one who had these feelings about Miles. Eric DeCosta before the season said that he believed that Miles Boykin was going to have a big year this year. Miles Boykin himself said it, and I believe he was on a list before the season, an ESPN list of young prospects in the league who could break out this season. There's 25 guys on the list, and Miles was in 6th position. So that shows you that a lot of other people had this opinion about Miles Boykin as well. But the way I feel at this point is that when you have a really good, promising receiver, you don't have to guess at it. I think you just know. And we've seen over the last 2 seasons so many rookies and second-year players come into the league and perform really well, catching loads of balls, making loads of big plays, yards after the catch, scoring touchdowns. And Miles looks a long, long way off that at the moment. And it's not like he's playing on a dumpster fire team. He's got a good QB. The team is functional. I really think that if Miles was going to be the kind of receiver that we would like him to be in the future, we would have seen more of it by now. I don't think the barriers are such in front of him that he is incapable of showing the potential he has in the circumstances he's in. I've seen quite a few excuses made by him from some fans. And look, I'm not a Miles Boykin hater. I've already said why I'm a fan of Miles Boykin and what I expected him to do this season. But I've seen some claims that he hasn't had enough time to work out with Lamar, the COVID shortened summer meant that they couldn't work out as much. Look, I saw loads of articles in the summer saying that Miles was joining up with Lamar at his camps in Florida, his QB camps, his training camps, and catching balls from him there. They were working on the chemistry. So I don't really think that's a good enough reason. I think if there's no chemistry with Lamar and Miles can't work his way into the offense at this point, I think we have to start putting more of the onus on him and maybe not making excuses. But anyway, going back to Dez, don't want to go off on a tangent too much. Dez is the kind of player that could be really useful for us because we do need a possession receiver. If you look at the receiving core this season, the wide receivers for Baltimore have caught fewer passes and for fewer yards than any other wide receiving core in the league. And for a team like Baltimore Ravens with Super Bowl aspirations, that's not good enough. Now, we know Ravens like to use multiple tight end sets, but even so, it's still not good enough. And the team's one elite tight end down from last season with Hayden Hurst up and gone. So we're working with 2 tight end sets, and there haven't been enough players getting the ball in the passing game. And the opponents now know they can key into Mark Andrews at tight end, key into Marquise Brown at wide receiver. And when you look at the amount of receptions that other players on the team are getting, it's very few. So it's right now, passing game is too predictable. Needs to be another option. I think there's a big body receiver, a veteran, someone who understands how to use his body in the field, is going to go up and get balls. Miles hasn't been great this season at going to get balls that are contested. He's been the cause of one pretty poor interception I can remember. Can't remember which game it was, but it was a bad one. And I think in general, when he's in traffic, considering he's a big guy, he just doesn't seem to really know how to work towards the ball. He has some problems working the sidelines as well. And these are the kind of things that Dez is very familiar with, very experienced in, and I think will bring to the team. So we don't know when he's going to be elevated from the practice squads to the main roster. I would hope and expect it happens very soon, hopefully in time for this week's game against Pittsburgh, but maybe that's too soon. I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see. I've seen some other Ravens fans saying, don't get Dez, we need a bigger, more younger receiver, a more superstar receiver. Right now, there's been a lot of talk of players like Julio Jones. I just don't think that's realistic. Look, who wouldn't want Julio Jones on their team? I definitely would. I just can't really see it happening. And the Ravens are up against the cap. I don't know that we can make that kind of move. Presumably Dez is going to be fairly cheap at the moment. But anyway, in Eric, I trust, and I'm happy with this signing. Something needed to be done to the receiving core. It's something, and I hope it brings some results. If not, then we'll talk again down the line. But right now, I'll take this at least. I still think that it's not going to be the only solution to the Ravens' passing game woes. More has to be done. The offensive line isn't an issue, and Dez isn't going to help with that. But it's a start, and we'll see how the season progresses. Now, the other news of the last week for Baltimore Ravens fans is the signing of Yannick Ngakoue. So, EDC did his magic again. He pulled another rabbit out of the hat, and he managed to sign Ngakoue from the Vikings by trading a third-round pick in 2021 and a conditional fourth rounder in 2020. Or was it fifth rounder? I think it may have been a fifth rounder actually. But nonetheless, it's not a big outlay for a player of Ngakoue's standards. He has 42.5 sacks in his career thus far. He's truly one of the elite pass rushers in the NFL, and he's going to slot in and be great for the Ravens. I'm really excited about this personally. So it's not the first time the Ravens have been interested in Ngakoue. He's a player who's been targeted by the Ravens for years. Apparently, when he was drafted by the Jags, one pick ahead of the Ravens pick, and apparently Baltimore was actually planning to use that pick on him. But it didn't work out. He went to Jacksonville, and when Jacksonville traded him in this offseason prior to this season, he went to Minnesota. Now, I was really hoping that the Ravens would trade for him. I really wanted Ngakoue. I was checking all the websites, NFL, CBS Sports, everything during the offseason, just hoping that he would be a player that the Ravens would get. Didn't happen, but he's here now. So the Ravens saw an opportunity. I never imagined he'd be available so quickly after going to Minnesota. But clearly Minnesota knows its season is lost, and now they're doing a fire sale. Maybe they'll get rid of more veterans. Their season's not going anywhere. But it's worked out amazingly, and this is the kind of opportunistic trade that the Ravens were so good at for years under Ozzie Newsome's leadership. And now with Eric DeCosta, having learned from him, he's pulling off the same trick. So it's great, and this should be an absolute slam dunk for the Ravens. I've spoken before on my channel about how I like hometown players playing for the Ravens, Maryland natives playing for the Ravens. Even though I'm not from Maryland myself, obviously, I do like it when you have that presence on the team, and that's great now. So, that's amazing with Tavon Young, a Maryland native, having gone down with an injury. Now I've got Ngakoue, who is apparently from Bowie, Maryland, went to high school in Washington, D.C. Bit of confusion about where he actually lived. But anyway, he's from the area, and although he was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan growing up, as he said, he's admitted he wasn't a Ravens fan, but nonetheless, I'm sure he's hyped to be going to Maryland. It'll be easier for his mother and other family members and friends to come see him. He played at Maryland at college. He was at Terrapin. So this is great for him. I'm sure he's really happy, and that's evidenced by the exchange between him and Calais Campbell. I don't know if you saw the video, but Calais Campbell was being interviewed by, I think, the Baltimore Ravens media team at the time that the news came through, and they broke to him that his former Jacksonville teammate Ngakoue had just been traded to the Ravens. He didn't know. He checked his phone and said, yeah, Ngakoue had been blowing up his phone already, excited about it. He seems super pumped, hyped to be at the Ravens. So we should be too. I really think this is going to be a great signing for the Ravens, because there is a defensive problem for the Ravens. The Ravens right now are second in the league in sacks, but that's a misleading number. I think Ravens fans really know that for the past couple of seasons, there hasn't been enough of an edge rush on the team. I'm getting a lot of sacks, but frankly, the sacks are due to the scheme and the way that our defensive coordinator, Don Wink Martindale, sets up the defense. He's been so good at getting pressure on opposing QBs despite a lack of edge talent on the team. We've just got Matt Judon playing on the franchise tag at the moment. There isn't really anyone else of great note. Of course, we've got players like Tyus Bowser, Jalen Ferguson, but they're not really at that level yet to make a massive impact. And Judon's really been carrying that load as an edge rusher himself. Most of the pressure has been coming from elsewhere. He's been scheming up blitzes. So the Ravens, even though we had the second most sacks in the whole league this season so far, since the start of 2019, the Ravens actually have the fewest sacks in the NFL when sending 4 or fewer defenders. So that shows you something. Those sacks are coming from blitzes. We've got DBs making sacks all over the place. This season we had a game with 5 sacks from defensive backs. I think 2 safeties and 3 cornerbacks, or the other way around, got sacks in the same game. That's been the signature of the Martindale defense. He's been really, really good at making up for that lack of edge talent and getting pressure through blitzes. But the problem is that comes with risk. And certain QBs are going to deal with that very well. Not every QB does, which is why the Ravens defense has been doing so well largely this season. First in points allowed, second in yards allowed in the whole NFL. That is outstanding. But we saw what happened in the Chiefs game. Those of us who were able to watch it to the end, anyway, I struggled. I was taken out of it. I was really struggling with that game. I was so upset. But we saw what happened. Patrick Mahomes is a QB who is very good at sensing the blitz and picking apart the defense. And when you blitz, you have to send all the defenders, sending defensive backs at the QB. It leaves a lot of space downfield. It leaves a lot of men uncovered downfield. And for a team like the Chiefs, where you've got Mecole Hardman, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, DeMarcus Robinson, Travis Kelce running all over the field, it's going to be a real matchup problem. So now, with Ngakoue, hopefully, the team can get more pressure conventionally without having to do as many blitzes, having to send players from the secondary. Personally, I think the team could probably do with even more edge help. I saw that Everson Griffin was potentially available from the Cowboys, and I was wondering how much he would cost. I don't know what his salary is like. Maybe that's unrealistic, but I was thinking, I could get another player like that. That would really set the Ravens in a really good defensive situation. But I'm sure Wink's happy with the addition of Yannick Ngakoue. I'm excited about it. I hope he doesn't take too long to get acclimatized to the team and get up to speed. But I don't think he will. I mean, by all accounts, he's a really hard worker. Calais Campbell said he's really dedicated to the game. He's one of the hardest workers he's known. This sounds like a guy who's really motivated, loves football, wants to win, and isn't a locker room trouble. I mean, there were some issues at Jacksonville, but frankly, I think we can blame that on the franchise. We've seen what's happened at Jacksonville. So many players have been unhappy. So many players have wanted out. So many players have been traded out of there. I don't think he's a locker room trouble. I think he just really wants to win and wanted to be in an organization he didn't see as dysfunctional. And the Ravens are anything but a dysfunctional franchise. This is a franchise that players should want to play for, players should feel proud of playing for, and players should feel confident that they're going to be put in a position to win, put in a position to use their talents to the best of their potential, and be treated well by the coaching staff. So I'm optimistic about this, and obviously about the Dez signing, and I think this bodes well for the rest of the season. I think Ravens fans, look, we know we've got a good record right now. There's a lot of season to come, and it's probably not going to be as impressive an offensive season as last season. That was very hard. It was a historic season for the Ravens offensively, and realistically, there was likely to be a bit of a regression from last season. But there's still everything to play for. And besides that, it's Steelers Hate Week. Who doesn't love that? So I end this video here and say thanks for tuning in. Please leave your comments below and I'll answer any questions or comments you have. Anyway, the next video will be addressing Steelers Hate Week, and I'll be previewing Steelers versus Ravens this week, and all the other games in week 8. I think it's week 8. So yeah, you'll hear from me soon, and thanks for watching. Go Ravens.